Good afternoon, good evening, and also good morning for some of you. Welcome to our meeting today on 15th of September, 6 o'clock Colombo time. So today we are going to discuss a kind of a new subject. I mean, for me, it's a new word as well. For some of you, it will be a new word as well. That's about agripreneurs. And I've got someone who is kind of pioneering this kind of work in Sri Lanka. And it's my pride really to present this particular person. But to do that, I need a more skilled person. So we got a moderator today, Nilmini Rollins. Now, who is Nilmini? Just give a little in the introduction, but she is another power behind this kind of work. And she's an immigration lawyer who is based in the United Kingdom. But she's fluent in both in English and French, and she's done most of her degrees in French. Plus, she can speak in Sinhalese and understand Sinhalese as well. She's enormously empathic, and I know I've been following some work she's doing. She's does lots of charity work and always feels that we should share things and then collaborate and so on. And she's making a major effort to do this. So she'll be the moderator who is conducting the meeting in total. I'll be kind of in the background. And she's really a charity work leader. And here already, within the last 2 months, she's gathered quite a lot of support to this work, including gathering people like Chathuranga to hear. So why do we talk about this today? Why agripreneurs for Sri Lanka? Now, agriculture contribution for the GDP at the moment is 7%, but this has been higher before, but it has dropped. But we are an agricultural country. We need to focus on this to improve that. But 30% of our people work in agriculture at what level? Different levels. So if you take the rural population, 82% of the population live in rural areas, and most agriculture is their livelihood for most of them. But on the other hand, the export sector, 40% of the agricultural output contributes to that. But then they face challenges. We know that historically from various issues like productivity is their problem, profitability is a problem, and fertilizer, drought, and so on and so on. So there are lots of issues that they face beyond the control of the farmers themselves. But what can the agripreneurs do? So here we go. So this is the generations we have today. We have generation X, M, and Z. And this will be most relevant for our younger generation. So that is also another important point here. So may I welcome Nilmini to do the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juliet. Thank you for that kind introduction. Welcome, everybody. We've got some very important people in the audience as well today. And I would like, first of all, to do a little bit of housekeeping and to tell you about the agenda, first of all. So I'll give a little intro into the topic first. We will then have a very brief video, and then I will introduce Chathuranga, and then Chathuranga will present his presentation. Okay, so first of all, I would like, before we commence the video, just to tell you a little bit about the topic, why we chose it. And that's because in the height of the Sri Lankan financial crisis, the World Food Programme estimated that there were 6.3 million people in Sri Lanka, that's over 30% of the population, who are food insecure and needed humanitarian assistance. And of those, 5.3 million people were either reducing meals or skipping meals, and at least 65,600 people were severely food insecure. So prices of made food items were rising since the last quarter of 21 and reached a record high in August 2022, with the year-on-year food inflation rate really reaching about 94% at its height. which meant that the power of households to buy food was severely reduced. Whilst the situation is very much more improved, and much more can be done to improve the situation of ordinary people. Now, government policy has an enormous impact on food security and the general well-being of the population. And so in a country where a large proportion of the GDP is based on agriculture, it's very important to plan carefully and seek expert advice and use modern technology and support innovation in order to implement various policy changes. We have a country that's blessed with luxuriant, fertile land, much sun and rain, and we have all the elements we need, not only to be self-sufficient, but to grow our economy by expanding our exports. In fact, we can be the food basket to the rest of the world. We have rich land of waving coconut palm trees, so we must return the country to a rightful place as a nation where we don't need to go to the rest of the world, waving our palms instead. So we need to also understand that smallholder farmers can contribute to the Sri Lankan economy. Proper long-term planning rather than reactionary measures are required, not only to survive and thrive as a nation. We saw VAT increasing at the beginning of January 2024. And so 95 items, which were out of 138, which were previously VAT exempt, became liable to VAT. And that included quite a lot of food items as well as education items. Now, whilst some essential food items were exempted, quite a large proportion were no longer exempt. Around about the same time, the government reduced the special commodity levy on rice imports, for example. So that's to encourage imports because of a shortage of rice. So we've got, on the one hand, certain measures being taken with indirect taxation, and then reducing the levies on the other for imports. So it's really important for governments to bear in mind the impact of one set of policies on another set of measures as well. We've also got agrochemicals issues. Obviously, there were reasons for introducing bans on agrochemicals because of the pollution that it involves, contaminates water, soil, air, and also the pest resistance and human exposure to chemical pesticides is linked to chronic illnesses such as cancer and heart and respiratory and neurological diseases. So it makes sense to limit them. We've also got agrivoltaic farming that could be introduced and could become a game changer in Sri Lanka. And that's being piloted in places like Kenya and France. In Amance, for example, in France, in northwest central France, there's a project that is very much underway where they've installed 5,000 solar panels in the agro canopy above the cultivation. And that produces 2.4 megawatts of power, which contributes to the climate change efforts and also supports the agricultural projects because it provides a certain level of shade for the crops. So the Export Development Board of Sri Lanka acknowledges that Sri Lanka's agricultural sector plays a major role in creating jobs, raising incomes, reducing malnutrition, and kickstarting the economy. So I'd like, first of all, to play this very brief video, and that's from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN. And then we will proceed with the rest of the proceedings for today, okay? Thank you. We don't have sound. Chathuranga, we don't have sound on that. I think you may need to unmute.
ඒ දවස්වල ඉතින් අපිට මේ වගේ වැසියාවල් තිබුණෙත් නෑ පාති දාලා වේජ ලෝණු හදලා ඊට දෙවිලින් වහගෙන අපි තින් උදේට අකුලනවා හවස් වෙනකොට ආයි වහ ගන්නවා වැහි ආවරණය සකස් කරගත්තේ උණ පතුරු අරගෙන ඒක නමලා ඉටිරෙත්තක් ඒකට කවර එක වශයෙන් දාලා තමයි සකස් කරේ නමුත් අපි වැහි වෙලාවට ඒක ඔරොත්තු දෙන්නේ නැහැ මොකද සමහර හුලඟක් આવොත් වැස්සත් එක්ක ඒක ගහගෙන පැත්තකට යනවා
ඇත්තටම වටිනවා. පොළොව සකස් කරගන්න හැටි, පාත්ති දාන හැටි.
ඒකෙදි හොඳ දැනුමක් අපි ලබා ගන්න නැත්නම් එච්චර දැනුමක් අපි ළඟ තිබුණේ අපිට හිතෙන විදිහටනේ අපි ගොවිතැන් කරේ.
නිෂ්පාදන වියදම අඩුම මට්ටමකින් පවත්වා ගනිමින් වැසියාවරණ ගෘහ තුල ලොකුණු බීජ නිෂ්පාදනය කරලා හොඳ මට්ටමේ බීජ ශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් හදාගත්තා.
විෂය සංවිධානයේ කැනේඩියා රජයේ අපිට මේ ලබා දුන්න ගෘහය ඒ ගෘහය ලැබුණ නිසා තමයි මේවා මෙවැනි අස්වන්නක් අපිට ලබා ගන්න මේ අවස්ථාවේ පුළුවන් වුණේ. ඉතල ගත්තේ කිලෝ 2ක් 3ක් වගේ මේ ගමන අපිට කිලෝ 10ක් 12කට ප්‍රමාණයකට යන්න පුළුවන් තත්ත්වයක් උදා වෙලා තියෙනවා.
වැසියාවනේ ලැබුණාට පස්සේ වතුර ලයින් එකක් දාගත්තට පස්සේ ගෑණියක් වෙන මට තනියම උනත් වැඩ කරගන්න පුළුවන්.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chathuranga, for sharing that. So onwards, well, that was a Food and Agriculture Organization video. They also have a hand-in-hand program that Sri Lanka has signed up to now. The video talked about a project where the Canadian government participated and provided some support for the Sri Lankan government and to Sri Lankan farmers, rather. Now we're going to go on to talk about a whole load of issues. For example, we have an expert, and we're extremely fortunate to have him with us today, who will discuss certain key issues, such as what are the main things that hamper Sri Lanka's agricultural sector? How can the export potential of Sri Lanka be accelerated using modern agricultural methods? And how can AI technology and renewable energy be applied in small holdings? Can farmers be better supported through government and other initiatives? To talk about this, we've got Chathuranga Bopeththa. And Chathuranga used to work for Haley's Agriculture Holdings as a greenhouse and micro-irrigation lead. And he's also worked in product management and R&D with them. But currently he works for Zend Technologies PVT Limited as the head of Govi AI Smart Agriculture Solutions. So he's leading the development team in this. He's also lectured on the topic of agriculture machinery, new technologies, such as AI and other technologies in agriculture. So we're really, really fortunate to have Chathuranga. To ask Chathuranga to go ahead and provide the presentation to us, and then we'll follow that up with some Q&A afterwards.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Almini, for that generous introduction, and it's an honor to be introduced by someone with such extensive expertise in business and global talent, and who has been a guiding force for so many organizations internationally. So I truly appreciate your effort, and also Dr. Chula bringing us all together today. So ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here with you to discuss a topic which is close to my heart. So nurturing agripreneurs in Sri Lanka. So I'm excited to share ideas that can shape the future of our country's agricultural landscape and its global presence. So I'm Chathuranga Bopeththa. So over the past decade, I've been fortunate to immerse myself in agricultural mechanization and more recently, the exciting world of agri-tech. So my journey from being an agriculture graduate to leading a digital agriculture business has been as challenging as convincing my wife why I had to come to the office room today on a Sunday, all days. By the way, all in all, as you all know, agriculture doesn't take a day off. So let me first introduce the term agripreneur. As Dr. Chula said, it's new to some of the people. So it's a combination of two key words, agriculture and entrepreneurs. The concept of agripreneurship is about seeing agriculture as more than just farming. It's about building businesses that add value to agriculture through innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. So an agripreneur is someone who thinks beyond the farm, someone who taps into opportunities like processing, packaging, and exporting products. They are entrepreneurs who see agriculture as a thriving business sector with untapped potential. So as we know, entrepreneur is someone who organizes, starts, operates, and in effective control of a business or a commercial venture. They are always innovators in either product, service, or process, and can maximize profits by adopting new strategies. Quite similar, an agripreneur is an also individual who does the same, focusing on the agriculture sector, broadly speaking, providing a value addition to agricultural resources, typically engaging rural human resources. So let me bring you through some of the important statistics. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see agriculture's contribution to GDP has remained relatively stable from 7.91% in 2012 to 8.75 in 2022. The slight increase during the COVID may highlight the interest of general public in agriculture. However, we must acknowledge that stagnation in growth limits our global competitiveness. This is where agripreneurs can step in by shifting from mere production to value addition, like processing, branding, and exporting. So we can break out this plateau. So then, if we look at the agriculture sector contribution to GDP, back in 1960s, agriculture contributed 32% to the GDP. Today, it's only 8.3. This decline reflects not just industrialization, but also an underutilization of agriculture's potential. Like countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, they have transformed the agricultural sectors with agripreneurship and technology and diversifying from raw goods into high value exports. We as a country, we should follow the same path. So if I bring you to another important graph, which is the labor in agriculture has dropped from 41% in 1990s to 26.5 today. But the real problem is, even though there's a reduction over the period, in contrast of the reduction in GDP contribution, this is low. In fact, on the other, agriculture industry complains that reduction of labor is a burning issue. This is the paradox that we need to address. Like by promoting agripreneurships, we have got to move from labor-intensive farming to more skilled, technology-driven model. This will allow us to improve productivity while giving rise to the job opportunities in processing, logistics, and marketing. So let me bring the last statistics, which is also a global comparison. I have brought only few countries just to understand where we are. So comparing Sri Lanka with countries like India, Thailand, and China shows a clear gap in how we leverage agriculture. For example, in India, 17.4% GDP comes from agriculture, far higher than Sri Lanka's 7.9%. Through agripreneurship, Sri Lanka can bridge this gap. So adding value to exports, enhancing competitiveness, and attracting foreign investments. The development of value chain also will increase both GDP contribution and employment. So if we look at the history of our agriculture sector, so all these numbers which I have showed you point to one conclusion, which we need to reimagine agriculture in Sri Lanka. So agripreneurs can unlock that untapped potential of our agriculture sector by leveraging technology, innovation, and value addition. So they will transform farming from subsistence activity to a profitable, scalable, and globally competitive business. So which ensure sustainable growth for our economy and livelihood for our communities. With that note, let me bring you to the challenges that are facing as a country in agriculture sector. You can see Sri Lanka's agriculture sector faces significant hurdles. Low productivity is a critical issue. Though we have fertile lands, as Nilmini explained right at the beginning, but outdated practices prevent us from achieving higher yields. The recent economic crisis has further um, exacerbated these problems, limiting farmers' access to essential imports. And lastly, the fragmentation of landholding makes it hard to scale operations to adapt modern technology. So those are the challenges that we are facing as a country. However, these challenges are also creating opportunities for agripreneurs. By addressing these bottlenecks, we can modernize agriculture, boost productivity, and turn farming into a profitable business model. Because every challenge, as a business person, as entrepreneurs, so every challenge is an opportunity. Agripreneurs can bridge these gaps by introducing innovative technologies, improving supply chain efficiencies, and creating scalable business models in agriculture. For example, transitioning from raw commodity production to value-added products like packaging and branding. Those will significantly improve both profitability and the global competitiveness. So it is one thing is crystal clear. So the value addition is the key to higher profit margins in agriculture. By moving from raw commodity export to finished high value products, we can increase revenue, and as well as we can create jobs and boost export competitiveness. For example, take the spice industry. So rather than exporting raw cinnamon or turmeric, we have true cinnamon in Sri Lanka. So we can develop spice-based wellness products like maybe oils, teas, and maybe either cosmetic products. But this shift not only taps into global wellness trends, but also enhances brand value, making Sri Lankan products stand out in international markets. So by focusing on product-based exports rather than raw materials, we unlock a greater economic potential, ensuring more profitability for farmers, creating niche markets, and allowing us to compete globally with countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia. So value-added agriculture is no longer just an option, it's the future of sustainable, profitable farming in Sri Lanka. So with that, I thought bringing few examples of real agripreneurs will be helpful for us to understand how the thought process is of an real agripreneur. So I bring one example. Let me share with you a story that beautifully describes the spirit of agripreneurship in action. About 6-7 years ago, if I'm not wrong, I met a bright young woman named Himali Suravira at an exhibition. She had a small table, but what caught my eye were her innovative products made entirely from something we often overlook, which is durian. So she had created durian yogurt, ice cream, chips from seeds, and even a decorative pot made from the tough durian fruit cover that would otherwise be discarded. So I was so impressed by her innovation that I asked her numerous questions about her inspiration and the process. After our conversation, I asked her how I could help. So she told me she was looking for a job. Financial struggles had made it hard for her to pursue her entrepreneurial dreams. Then I encouraged her to follow through with a passion and offering some marketing and business guidance to help her get started. I know it wasn't easy. Being a woman and a young entrepreneur in Sri Lanka present its own set of challenges, but Himali persevered. She started small, determined to turn her innovative idea into a business. Today, she runs a cafe in Kandy that's fully dedicated to durian products. His story is one of the resilient innovation and commitment to her vision, proving that agripreneur can drive not only the personal success, but also the local economic growth as well. In fact, I got a call last night from Himali and said, I saw your Facebook post regarding this speech and would love to join. Then I said, yes, please join because I'm going to share your story too. I'm happy to tell you all that she is also joining with us today. So these are the products: durian yogurt, then durian jam, chips, And also now she is serving, there are a lot of foreigners are also coming to enjoy her innovative products. Then my next example is Hotzi. Let me introduce another remarkable agripreneur success story, which is Hotzi, born from the shared passion of Amali and her husband, Chamath. So Amali is a medical doctor and Chamath is an engineer, but both are very passionate about agriculture. Hotzi started in the face of adversity during economic challenges. Instead of being held back by uncertainty, they decided to pursue a new path, growing scotch bonnet, hot peppers in their greenhouse, which become the foundation for their chili sauce. So I got to know Chamath because they were very keen to use smart agriculture in their greenhouses to deviate from traditional agriculture. So what makes their story so inspiring is how they turned their love for cooking into a business that helps local farmers by adding value to their produce. After many trials, they developed a hot sauce, and response from their first customers was overwhelming, as Chamath told me. Then they didn't stop there. Amali and Chamath recognized that many people are hesitant about hot sauce due to unpredictable heat. So they created a range of sauces with varying spice levels, ensuring everyone could enjoy their unique flavors. So these are the products. Today, Hotzi is more than just a product, actually. It's like a movement. It represents the innovation, local community support. So there's a value chain because they are buying from other farmers as well. So this bold new flavor experience from Sri Lanka. So these images are from their greenhouse, which is also using smart agriculture solutions, and along with the products that they have developed for local and international markets. Then there is another example that I want to bring. This is, let me share a simple yet powerful idea that's been on my mind, turning our local Ceylon olives, which is weralu, into a high value export product. We are familiar with the olives we import, but think about all the Ceylon olives that fall to waste. It's estimated that nearly 400,000 weralu trees in the country, but none of them are commercially grown. With just a little innovation, we can develop this into a global product. Yes, we have some form of pickles, weralu acharu, but I haven't seen anything tapped into export potential, like canned olives in brine, seeds removed, because there are small tools that other countries use to remove the seeds from olives. So packed for export under new brand. And this brand, which is Olivia Ceylon, I just developed using an AI tool. Now I haven't researched the feasibility of this product yet. So just take this idea with a pinch of salt. But what I really wanted to emphasize the fact that how AI and simple tools can help you turn such ideas into reality with the minimal investments. So tools today can help with branding, product design and marketing almost instantly. Just like this label, which I was created in 10 minutes yesterday. Imagine how easy it could be to get started in agripreneurship when we have such powerful resources and technology available for every one of us. This is just one example that I wanted to share the thinking process of agripreneur. So key areas for growth. So as we explore the future of agriculture, Sri Lankan agriculture, there are 4 key areas where growth is essential: innovation, investment, export, and research. Innovation is the driving force for agripreneurship, helping farmers to move beyond traditional practices into new technologies like AI, data analytics, and automation. So when we talk about innovation in Sri Lankan agriculture sector, I cannot overlook the contribution of Govi.ai, our agri-tech startup, which I'm also representing. While this is not a platform to market the products, but it's important to highlight how Govi.ai is transforming the sector. because by leveraging AI-driven solutions, we empower farmers to make data-informed decisions, improving productivity and sustainability. Govi.ai is committed to tools that enhance crop management, reduce cost, and promote efficiency. So making agriculture smarter and profitable in Sri Lanka. So let me quickly bring you through how it works, because some people might be interested to see how it works. So simply, if we take a greenhouse, maybe either small scale greenhouse, so we have locally developed the hardware and the software solutions for that. So once our hardware solution is installed in the greenhouse, so all the environmental parameters are seen on your mobile or the PC. So it is not just observing, so we can even automate the climate control through the software. So that is the way this software is working. So the sensors, hardware, through IoT technology, we have developed it. And also at the same time, once we are getting a lot of data, we are putting AI technology to do the predictions for yield, and also even giving some insights to the farmers for the next seasons to improve their crops. So yeah, the second thing is investment. So investment in agriculture infrastructure and startups can also stimulate entrepreneurship. Then enhancing our export potential through value-added products is also crucial to compete globally. Finally, research in crop diversification and sustainability can unlock long-term success for our agripreneurs. Not only that, even the development of new products like food products also, there's a huge potential to do researches to develop new products. Then let's move into the bottlenecks that we are facing as a country to develop agripreneurs in Sri Lanka. So the first thing is traditional mindset, because farming is often viewed as a labor-intensive activity rather than a business opportunity. To address this, we need to shift the perception towards entrepreneurship, where farming become a profitable venture involving innovation and market strategies. For example, I know in the agriculture mechanization industry, since I have been there for so many years, there are farmers, those who buys tractors worth 6 to 7 million rupees worth, but they are not at least keep track of their cost and income, at least to calculate the ROI even after a few years. So, which is a pathetic situation, because finally he doesn't know whether that business is a profitable business or not. So that is where we need to come out from the traditional mindset as farmers. Then the second thing is access to technology. Many farmers still rely on outdated tools. So smart agriculture technologies like AI and IoT, which I explained before, can also optimize production, but access remains limited. So we must focus on making modern tools affordable and available for farmers to thrive in agripreneurships. Then thirdly, innovation gap. There's a lack of research and new ideas being encouraged in the sector. We need to promote the culture of innovation through partnerships between government institutes, universities, startups, and the private sector, which ensures the fresh ideas are also being implemented. The fourth one is the policy barriers and unstable policies, such as the overnight ban of chemical fertilizers, as we have experienced in a couple of years ago, also have been detrimental. So such dramatic measures can destabilize the agriculture sector. Instead, policies should be introduced gradually with pilot programs that allow farmers to adapt. For instance, in Germany, farmers had years to transition from chemical fertilizer to sustainable practices, providing time for learning and adjustments, because they have set their targets for 2030. By 2030, they are going to transform at least 30% of their agriculture into organic cultivations. So the fifth one, access to finance. So agribusinesses, particularly startups, struggle with obtaining capital. Government-backed loans, microfinance initiatives, and incentives can also encourage banks and investors to provide more accessible financing options. So the finance institutes always look into low risk investments. So they have identified agriculture as one of the most risky industry to provide finance facilities. So as a country, we need to think of giving a data-backed guarantee to those institutes so that they also are confident to invest into agriculture. Finally, farming versus agriculture. This is one of the key area that as country, what we are lacking of, because many still equate farming solely with production, because farming is just a part of the whole agriculture, that is just from seeding to getting the harvest. But agriculture as a whole, it's encompass the entire value chain from production to processing, marketing, and export. By promoting this broader vision of agriculture, we can help farmers to see beyond just growing crops. So encouraging them to participate in high value agribusiness opportunities. Otherwise, what happens is farmer is always thinking that it is just their job is only farming. So they will take the ball from seed to harvest, but thereafter, that is why we have to export as bulk without doing the value addition. So finally, the question is, how do we nurture young agripreneurs? As Dr. Chula mentioned, that generation Z that we need to encourage to come into these areas. So I have identified 4 areas. There are a few other areas as well, but with the interest of time, I have taken only 4 areas. So to ensure the future of agripreneurs in Sri Lanka, we must nurture the next generation of innovators. So first, education system can play a critical role by incorporating agriculture and entrepreneurship into curriculum. So it makes agriculture appealing to young minds. Programs that allow children to engage directly with farming can turn agriculture into a dynamic, viable career path. I know as leads, they are also taken one step ahead to do this, and that is the same reason why I'm also came into this, because they have doing some programs in some of the schools in Sri Lankan schools. That is a really good initiative. So then the second thing is the mentorship programs are another crucial pillar. Connecting young people with seasoned agripreneurs allows them to learn not just about cultivation, but also about the business side, how to brand, market, and grow their businesses. So then additionally, incentivizing youth through grants, maybe incubator programs and competitions focused on agribusiness innovation can also create real opportunities for them to develop ideas into commercial ventures. Such initiatives can ignite a passion for entrepreneurship early on, so providing a foundation for success. Lastly, young agripreneurs are more likely to embrace smart agriculture technologies like AI, automation, and precision farming. At Govi.ai also, what we are encouraging is to youngsters to come step forward and bring this technology forward in the agriculture sector. So by introducing these tools at an early stage, we give them the resources to transform agriculture into high-tech and profitable industry. So as we come to the close of my speech, I believe the future of Sri Lankan agriculture lies in the hands of young agripreneurs. The potential is there, waiting to be unlocked, just like the Ceylon olive under the tree. So with the right mindset and innovation and support, we can make Sri Lanka a leader in agriculture exports. So before we move to questions, I would like to remind everyone that we also have some esteemed experts with us today. I encourage them to jump in and share their insights as we open the floor for the question and answers. So let's dive into Q&A, and your questions and their perspectives could be the seeds of the next big entrepreneurial idea. Thank you. Over to you, Nilmini.
Thank you so much, Chathuranga. That's amazing. Combination of passion, vision, and expertise, which is really, really amazing. Thank you for that presentation. And I'd like to ask anybody who does have any questions to please raise their hands, and then we can work our way through the next session of Q&A. And ask everybody else to please remain muted, except for those actually speaking and asking questions. I'd be very grateful. Thank you. I believe that Dharma, you have a question. Please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Nilmani. Thank you, Chathuranga. Very interesting subject. I just want to throw some of the ideas in this field. I was born and brought up in dry zone in the agricultural community. During my childhood, I have seen all this hard work, but I think we need to bring new technology to this field. It is happening extremely slowly. When I was a child, harvesting time takes perhaps 5-6 days work, hard work, but today there's a machine called Bopeththa. It will finish the job within half a day. So this kind of thing should come. It's very slow in Sri Lanka. And I think you mentioned the young people don't want to go into agriculture because of that hard work. I think we need to bring these new technologies to agriculture, then it will happen. My background is renewable energy, solar energy. I have been promoting this. Part of this was to introduce these new technologies to agriculture. I can remember myself, perhaps you know Professor Kapila Gunasekara, Vice Chancellor of Peradeniya University. He's an agriculture engineer. With Lakshman Disanayaka, he's also here in the audience today. 3 of us wrote a proposal to make solar-powered grass-cutting equipment that will help to clean the paddy fields, because people work very hard in the sun. So these kind of machines are very important. And hedge trimmers, solar-powered hedge trimmers, and water pumping, solar-powered water pumping, drip irrigation, that kind of things. We wrote the proposal. I don't know what happened to it. It didn't go through. But these are the things we need to bring. Chathuranga, people like you, young people, are the best people to introduce this to the agriculture society quickly. One other thing I want to mention, I am involved in a solar village project, and in our first and second solar village, we distributed 100,000 Tom JC mango plants. The main aim is to, I think they are planting now, it's about 4 or 5 years ago, now mangoes are coming. Our aim is to export these. These are huge varieties, beautiful varieties, I'm sure you know it. One day when I was flying in a plane, I got some dried mangoes from Thailand. It is food for heaven. When I was eating it, that is why we were trying to introduce solar dryers to these solar villages. We can make them in the country, in the village. You need some good carpenter, and you can dry these things without any exposure to flies in a hygienic way. And these are ideal for vegetables and fruits, drying and packing and selling. So these are the kind of things we need to bring. So thank you for this presentation. Please, one other thing I want to mention, we have an association called APSL. I was the president during 2 years, 2009 and 11. I had 2 APSL award schemes in Sri Lanka. The first one was for A-level students to write an essay for how to develop their district. It went very well. And then the second one was for these agricultural entrepreneurs. And we had about 15 entrepreneurs came up, and we selected 6 of them. They were making, good food from jackfruit, very similar to what you mentioned with Durian. And we selected them. We gave them awards in NSF in Colombo. our aim was to select 3 or 4, perhaps try to find some funding from here and support them as startup companies. But unfortunately, when it comes to money, people are very difficult to come together, because we could go as, what is it called? Business agents. There are different systems. If you collect some money here, you can support them, you can get the benefits as well, but it didn't work. But these are the kind of things we can do to improve agriculture. It's an agricultural country, beautiful, fertile land. I think we need to improve this. I hope after 21st of this month, things can change. We can work together rapidly. Thank you, Chathuranga, again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dams. Yeah. It's really great to see that you have done a good job in this area also, and also adding something to the mechanization levels that you have mentioned, because now those days our farmers used to do the harvesting of paddy by manual labor, but nowadays there is machineries came in. But fortunately, I think in Sri Lanka also now more than 95% it is mechanized. But the problem is those are really good. But the problem is when compared to the other countries in the food developments, new product development. So those are the areas that we need to really look into. But other than that, the mechanization levels, especially in paddy sector, is really good in Sri Lanka also, because nowadays more than 90 to 95% land preparation is done by machines like tractors, and harvesting is also done by combined harvesters. Yeah, really good insights from you. Thank you.
Combined harvester is called Bopeththa in Sri Lanka, right?
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Could I ask a follow-up question, Chathuranga, just going on from what Dharma is describing in terms of solar villages and investments and scholarships? Now, we mentioned very briefly about agrivoltaic systems. Is that something that we could introduce in Sri Lanka, do you think, with the support of the government, perhaps?
Of course, yes. But actually, the thing is, again, when it comes to as a technology, whether it is, even though it is viable, but the problem is again how the farmers are willing to invest on these things. So that is why the government or the funded project has to step in and initially bring that technology to the farmers. Then only they will get to know that the benefits of those technologies, and thereafter they will be moving towards those type of things.
Nilmini, you are muted.
Beg your pardon. I'm just wanted to show you a picture of the agrivoltaic systems for the benefit of the others. This is the project that's a pilot project that was in France, where you've got the canopy, agricultural canopy provided by solar panels above the cultivation, which is at ground level. Now, the question is it possible, do you think, to encourage the Sri Lankan government to invest in these things, given that this kind of technology is going to be quite new and for local farmers? Is this something that we could think about encouraging?
Exactly, yes, because now even this solar technology is also now getting popularized in Sri Lanka, because especially when it comes to agriculture, also there are some companies, they have introduced solar pumps for agriculture purposes. So it is now people are also moving towards these things, because when it comes to some of the rural areas where they cannot find electricity also in the agriculture field. So these type of renewable energy sources would be helpful for farmers to actually reduce the cost, as well as one way, and also to capture the natural energy.
Sure, thank you very much. I think
Nilmini, could I make a quick comment on the same thing?
Yes, go ahead.
Yesterday night I was watching Saturn, Anura Kumara Disanayaka was there, and he was mentioning we need to think about solar farms in Sri Lanka. I fully agree, because we have a fertile land. We should not cover fertile lands with solar panels. What we need to do is very similar to what you have shown. The solar panels perhaps 6, 7, 8 feet above the ground, and then grow food underneath, because you can pump water with solar power, drip irrigation, and more shade. So you can grow more vegetables underneath. So that is how we should do. And then solar panels should go on roofs rather than the fertile lands. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Because the shade from the panels also provides some protection for the vegetables or the cultivation underneath, doesn't it?
Yeah.
From heat stress. So I've got a
And,
question
raise
from
hand,
Professor Lakshman. Yes,
Yeah.
I've got a question from Lakshman Disanayaka, Professor Lakshman Disanayaka. Please go ahead, Lakshman.
Thank you, Nilmini. Thank you, Chathuranga, for the excellent presentation. I will take 3 minutes going through some of the notes I made while following your lecture presentation today. Yeah, I think I was waiting to give this information. Agrivoltaic, okay? Agrivoltaic is already in Sri Lanka. Halis has a site, I don't remember the name of the place, somewhere in the north central province. Agrivoltaic. I have seen only the photos. Then I visited recently. There is a research site, agrivoltaic, in Hantana, just 1 kilometer from where I work. I work at the NIFS, Hantana, just 1 kilometer up in a tea estate. There is a ADB grant funded project that is called Transparent Agrivoltaic. That site is identical to what Nilmini showed just now from France. So in Sri Lanka, we have that. It's called transparent. It is a series of canopies of solar panels, transparent. The solar panel itself is transparent because only half of the panel is covered by solar cells. But and also, in addition, between two canopies, there is about 2 meters width blank area. So under the panels, tea plant is growing, and between these canopies, the tea pluckers can go and pluck their teas. And there's a control plot, and there's this research plot. So what we saw was the tea leaves are better compared to the control plots, because as Nilmini pointed out, some shading is needed by the tree plant. Okay, and why ADB funded it? Because they have kept a separate some few solar panels to supply light to the nearby estate workers, 20 houses. So it's a community project. So ADB funded research project, and also it's a quite interesting example. So Professor Janaka Ekanayaka is in charge of the project, and we are also watching it. It's a pilot project. Hope it is going to be successful. As Dharmesh said, Sri Lanka has plenty of roofs in middle class houses. So why not convert them also to generate solar power, right? Then regarding the value addition to our agricultural products, especially for exports, it is sometimes surprising how this Thailand is doing it, I think, perfect. They export almost everything, right? King coconut juice and waraka, polos, and you name it, it is they export it. So we have failed in that. Because now Sri Lanka has quite the best spices, best cinnamon, best pepper, maybe you name it, it's the best in the world. So still we have been unable to catch that market. And it's thank you, Chaturanga, for bringing out these possibilities. All our young generation, half of them are trapped inside three-wheelers. So because farming is still in our society is not given due recognition. So I think what you are suggesting is excellent. Sri Lanka, we can export aloe vera drinks, young coconut drinks. And recently, a friend of mine pointed out Neil Cuttrell mull. It's a antioxidant, blue. If you can make the juice out of it, it's a healthy drink. I mean, you can plant it anywhere in Sri Lanka, this kind of thing. And recently I went to Topaz Hotel in Kandy. They had a very tasty soup. I asked the cook what is the specialty about it. He said this is made from jack seeds. The soup is made from jack seed powder. Costs at a pity, right? Then wattaka atta is something Sri Lankans throw out, whereas in the US it's packeted and sold. Cashew nuts. We import now cashew. And also another idea Chathuranga pointed out, we can introduce these, what you are proposing, into our universities, because now the universities has technological faculties, and agricultural technology is something we can introduce through these technology faculties in the universities. So that is one possibility for the future. Recently I went to 2-3 countries for these conferences. In China, in hotels, the tea they serve is Dilma. I went to Sweden a couple of months back. The tea they serve is Dilma, morning breakfast tea. It's very, very proud to see these things. So we have a great potential. Chathuranga, thank you. I think you have the responsibility to guide the policy planners in these developments. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very
for
much.
Excellent. Yeah.
Any response to that, Chathuranga?
Yeah. Regarding that project, actually in Hantana, so I was also aware about that project because when I was at Haley's, that project was like the tender process was going on. So I can remember that was a pilot project and also a community project where these villages were also getting the support from the project. So that was really a good project. So, and also looking forward to see such projects in Sri Lanka, because since it is a pilot project, we believe that there will be another steps ahead for these projects from maybe a funded project. So then we can go for this technology because which is already there in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
And at the same time, I'm also fully agree with the things that Thailand like countries, what they are doing, and in terms of the exports, agricultural products. So they are actually doing really well, where we are also failed up to certain extent. So I believe these whole efforts will, we'll be able to, develop agripreneurs, young agripreneurs in the country, so that they will be taking forward to make our country also proud, like Dilma does.
Yeah, thank you, Chaturanga.
Yes, thank you, Chaturanga and Professor Lakshman. You mentioned during your presentation, Chaturanga, an initiative from Leeds in relation to some schools projects. And I believe we have got representatives from at least one of those schools on the call today. And I wonder whether they'd be willing to share with us a little bit about the projects that they've got going in relation to the cultivation of cinnamon. Are you on the call and able to explain a little bit about that?
ප්‍රසංගට මම හිතන්නේ කතා කරන්නේ ප්‍රසංග මේ පොඩ්ඩක් ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එක ගැන කියන්න පුළුවන්ද?
If you'd like to unmute.
Dr. Chula, ඇත්තරම මේ ඩොක්ටර් චෝලා චතුරංගේ කතාව නම් හරි වටිනවා. මම හිතන්නේ අපේ ඇග්‍රිකල්චර් ටීචර්ත් මේලා සම්බන්ධ වෙලා ඉන්නවා. මේ බොහොම ස්තුතියි චතුරංග. ඇත්තරම මේ මම ඩොක්ටර් චෝලා ට්‍රාන්ස්ලේට් එකක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්ද?
පුළුවන් කියන්න.
හරි. ඇත්තරම මේ ව්‍යවසායකත්වයේ කියන අරමුණ මූලික කරගෙන තමයි මේ මමත් අපි පාසලක් විදියට මේ පුරුදු ව්‍යාපෘතිය පටන් ගත්තේ. මේකෙදි පාසල මූලික කරගත්තේ පාසල තමයි අවශ්‍ය තාක්ෂණය සහ ඒ අවශ්‍ය පහසුකම් ලබා දෙන්න සමාජයට අපි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. මේකෙදී අපි සම්බන්ධ කරගත්ත ළමයි කණ්ඩායමකොත් ඒගොල්ලන්ට අපි පාසල් වත්තේ අපි පැල 1000ක් විතර දාලා ඒක අපි ඩිමොන්ස්ට්‍රේෂන් එකක් විදිහට තියාගෙන දරුවන්ටත් අපි ඒ කුරුඳු පැල ලබා දුන්න ඒගොල්ලොන්ගේ ඉඩ තියෙන භූමිය වල වගා කරන්න කියලා. දැන් ඇත්තටම අවුරුද්දක් කාලයක් ගිහිල්ලා තියෙන මේ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකට පැල දැන් අඩි 1.5 2ක් විතර උසයි. දැන් අපි 3 පාරක් විතර මේකට පොහොර දාලා තියෙන අපිට සමගාමීව පාසලට සමගාමීව මේක දරුවොත් දැන් ගෙවල් වල කරනවා. දරුවෝ 7 දෙනෙක් තමයි මූලික වශයෙන් යොදාගත්තේ. ඒ වගේම මේකෙදි ඇත්තටම මේක අපි දීර්ඝ කාලිනව තමයි අරමුණු කරන් ඉන්නේ. මේකද අවශ්‍ය තාක්ෂණය ලබා ගන්න. ඒ වගේම එකපාරක් චතුරංගත් එක්කත් අපි කතා කරා. මේකේ මේ value added project value added things මොනවද මේකේ තියෙන්නේ ඒ ගැන පොඩ්ඩක් ඉස්සරහදී ඒවත් එකතු කරගන්න මේකට දැනට අපි මූලිකව කරලා තියෙන මේක වගා කිරීම සහ දරුවන්ට සහ ඒ තුලින් සමාජයට මේ සංකල්පය යොමු කිරීම. මොකද අපි විශ්වාස කරන එකක් තමයි ලංකාවට දැන් ඕන අපනයන කෘෂිකර්මයක්. ලංකාවේ හැම භූමියක්ම මේකට යොදාගත යුතුයි. ලංකාවට ඩොලර් එන්න නම් ඒ වගේම තාක්ෂණයේ පැත්තෙන් අපි ඉන්නේ ගොඩාක් පල්ලෙහා කියලා මම හිතන්නේ විශේෂයෙන් මැලේසියාව, ජපානය සහ ඊශ්‍රායල වගේ රටවල් එක බලනකොට. ඉතින් මේ තාක්ෂණයත් යොදාගෙන මේ සම්බන්ධව සමාජයක් දැනුවත් කරමින් මේක ඉදිරියට අරගෙන යන්න. මේක අපිට ගොඩාක් බාධක තියෙන භාෂාමය ගැටලු තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම තාක්ෂණය යොදා ගැනීම ගැටලු තියෙනවා. මේවටත් අවශ්‍ය උපදෙස් සපයමින් දරුවන් මාර්ගයෙන් දෙමව්පියන්ට නැත්නම් සමාජයට යන්න තමයි අපේ මේ සංකල්පය. මේකට තාම අපි තියන්නේ පටන් ගැනීමේ අවධියේ. මේකදී අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා යාබුද පාසල් සහ තවත් කණ්ඩායම් මේකට යොමු කරගන්න. ඇත්තට මේකට අපිට ගැටලු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ මේ පැල සොයා ගැනීමේ ගැටලුව සහ ඒකට අවශ්‍ය මුදල් ප්‍රතිපාදන ගැටලු. ඉතින් මේවත් පුළුවන් විදියට උදව් හොයාගෙන මේක ඉදිරියට අරන් යන්න තමයි සූදානම් වෙන්නේ. මොකද දැන් අපි රට වෙනස් වෙන්න ඕන. මොකද මේ අපි බංකොලොත් වෙලා තියෙන මෙතනින් ගොඩ යන්න නම් කෘෂිකර්මය එක ප්‍රධානම සාධකයක්. ඉතින් මේක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම දරුවන්ට සහ සමාජගත කරන්න තමයි අපි මේක පටන් ගත්තේ. දැන් අවුරුද්දකට එකමාරට ඉස්සෙල්ලා. ඉතින් දැනට මේක සාර්ථකයි. අභියෝග එනවා. එනකොට අපි මේක තවත් ව්‍යාප්ත කරලා මේක මොඩලයක් විදියට සමාජයට සහ අනිකුත් දරුවන්ට හැම එක්කෙනාටම දෙන්න තමයි අපේ බලාපොරොත්තුව. ඉතින් ඔබලාගේ උදව්
just do a
විශේෂයි.
very short English translation on that.
Yeah, please.
Prasanga is a school principal who is working in an intermediary level school in the rural area in Kaluthara. And then he started this project of cultivating cinnamon, etc. in the school garden. So at the same time, promoting similar things at the school children's homes who are volunteering. He's now got 7 students who are cultivating cinnamon at different levels in their own homes as well. And his message is that he knows that there's a major advancement necessary, in particular in agriculture, for the country to go forward, and therefore he is promoting the idea of innovation and getting more involved with the export-oriented projects, so that the message that these things are important will go through the students to the parents. And that's what he is doing, but he's got problems of various kinds, challenges like finding plants, etc., etc. But he is determined. So thank you for highlighting that, Prasanga. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Prasanga. And Prasanga is a real visionary and encouraging his students to take part in these projects and trying to make them global citizens, as Prasanga said himself once. So very grateful to you, Prasanga. And I hope that you will get the necessary support and perhaps the funding that you need to further your projects through the school. We've got a question from Shahan Ratnavel. I wonder if you could please ask your question from...
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you to Leeds first for organizing such an interesting seminar, and thank you to Prasanga for Chathuranga for having delivered such a interesting seminar. Chathuranga, you mentioned some interesting examples of areas where value addition can really help our agricultural sector, and you mentioned there were some interesting fruit examples that you used. I believe you had been working at Haley's. I gather Haley's were working with gherkins at one stage, and you had identified some particular areas where value addition can help. The background to my question is, one can reflect on the fact that the tea was brought into Sri Lanka because there was a coffee blight, and initially there was coffee that was grown, and there was a disease that affected the coffee plantations, and tea came in. And again, part of the background also to my question is that given our economic situation in the country, as you quite rightly highlight, there is a need to bring in value addition and with a view, obviously, to increasing our export revenue. Now, the examples you used were sort of targeted value additions. My first question is the agricultural sector in Sri Lanka focusing also on identifying crops with a more mass market appeal? I mean, I underline mass market appeal to boost our export revenue in the agricultural sector. I use that example of tea replacing coffee because there are things like maybe Kurakan bread. There could be that the South Africans have come up with this ribose tea, which I think is actually, I've sampled it in Africa, and it's really quite a very interesting competitor to our tea. And these kinds of things can be mass market. So if there are there other alternatives? My first question is, are there any alternative crops which have a more mass market appeal that we can bring in with a view to to increasing export revenue? That's my first question. The second question is, you underlined the importance of technology. Sometime back, I was told of maybe some very interesting robotic interventions, things like drones equipped with AI visual capabilities that will enable the agricultural sector to attack and to sort of obviate attacks by things like the fall armyworm. The drone will hover over a plantation, and the AI visual content will enable the drone to identify a leaf, for instance, that is being affected by the fall armyworm, and then the drone will lower, spray the plant, and move away. So it really combines some of the latest technologies to make sure that these plants are protected against pests like that. So that's my second question. Are these new technologies already in operation in Sri Lanka? Are they being considered? And the first question was on the mass market appeal, on alternative crops with mass market appeal. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Shan. Yeah. So to your first question, actually, when we take the exports, mainly we have tea, rubber, and coconut products. So apart from that, there are all the other products, like most of these value-added products also being exported from Sri Lanka. But the thing is the scale, what we are doing. But if we take any other crop which we can cultivate into mass markets, it's a question, because now our land extent and everything is like very limited to expand some of the cultivations. What we are really doing is, most of these companies, those who are exporting some of the agri products, what they're doing is they will have to take the same crop which is already grown in the country. For example, the Durianzila, I know she's also struggling to find enough durian fruits for her productions, especially for other, maybe if she is seeking for exporting, and also there is no enough products to buy in Sri Lanka. So the extent is a big problem. So that is one of the bottleneck that we have to address, because if there is a huge potential, but again, the thing is, let's say if there's a particular product that we can export, and people start cultivating commercially, but still we cannot predict about the prices, because there are some other markets in other countries where we are not price competitive, and also they will be come up with some other, if we are price competitive, then again in the near future they will be coming up with another strategy or something that they can also bring to the market and break that competitiveness. So then the people, those who have done the cultivation, also will be in a problem. So that is the problem that we are facing as a, the economy of scale of going for another crop is another problem. So that is there. And your second question was whether these drone technologies kind of things are in place currently. Yes, there are few companies, those who are doing with the drone spraying and also the image processing for some of the agricultural practices, like fall armyworm attack. Also, there were some companies trying to do this using the spray in drones, but there was some problem because usually that fall armyworm is like inside this leaves, so it is very difficult for a drone to reach that area and do spraying particularly that area. So that was the same thing. And even for the coconut also, there was a big issue with whitefly a couple of a few years, actually 1 year ago, there was a big problem with the whitefly, but still people were trying to do this spraying using drones. But the problem was that fly is like usually in the underneath of the leaf. So it is not that even though that drone can go above the coconut tree and do the spraying, but still there are some problems whether it is reaching to the really necessary areas of the tree. So those are the questions. But yes, to your question, yes, there are some companies doing those kind of technologies like drone spraying and image processing, especially in the plantation sector. The drones are being used to identify some of the diseases and even to do the estimation of the number of trees and the growth stages. And there are so many things going on.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. And also regarding what Heli's were doing, and even I can see Mr. Amjad Rajab, who was a former director at Heli's Agriculture, he's also joined here. If he also can, I think can give some comment on those things.
Amjad, please go ahead.
You're muted, Mary.
Yes, I can't hear you, Amjad. Are you on the call? Perhaps whilst we wait for Amjad to connect, thank you for those two questions, Shahan. They're really important questions. Chathuranga, given the limited land we have, and there are limitations to the land, and you mentioned in your speech that the land is very fragmented as well in terms of ownership. Is there something that can be done in concrete terms to overcome some of those issues, those restrictions?
There are certain things that we can, like currently also some of like Department of Agriculture is also doing, like, let's say for some of the crops we can introduce different methods of doing. For example, like chili, now they have introduced one method of high density cultivation. So within a very small land area, so we can plant so many plants more than the given recommendations. So those kind of things are there. So people are experimenting what we can do to get the maximum output using a small lands. So, and also at the same time, technology also coming forward to achieve these targets, because if we use smart agriculture solutions like, and also the protected agriculture like greenhouses, and even the very first video that we saw, the rain shelters kind of things also help for us to get a maximum yield more than we are just cultivating outside. So there are certain things that we can do to improve the productivity, what I see personally, what we can do is improving the productivity, because we cannot increase the land extent, because now the urbanization is also taking place, and deforestation is also another problem that we are facing. So what we can really think of, how we are going to improve the productivity of the existing lands, and also whether are there any methods that we can transform some of the areas. Like, for example, if we say this openly, so there'll be a, people might think it in a different ways, but it's the paddy sector actually, since we are also like now self-sufficient with paddy production in Sri Lanka, so the paddy is not bringing a lot of commercial values in that sense. So if we can transform some of these lands into different cultivations, so maybe seasonally, so one season they can cultivate a different crop in those areas, then the other season where they have enough water, they can cultivate paddy. So we have to think of things like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I believe Chula's got a question for you as well.
Not really a question. I actually wanted to make a comment, because now you got in this presentation a fantastic kind of a person who is telling us what they need to do. Now, in this audience, and also the people who are going to listen to this video, can really contribute to the various segments that is required to make it a major project for Sri Lankan upheaval. Now, in relation to mass production for mass demand, and we have discussed this before, one of our problems has been that consistent, continuous supply as well as consistent quality. Now, that has to be maintained right throughout the year to be able to compete with the other markets. And that's, we were told by other people, it's not my innovation, we were all told that has to be done if you want to capture foreign markets. So these are the things that can be done. And in particular, Chathuranga, now you got kind of an innovation idea, and there are many people who can help you. Just come out with small projects that people can help you. And then to start with, you need more people thinking in the way you think. So start some short courses, and you can start it in universities at faculty level, a short course. It's easy to approve, get it done. So give it in English, Sinhalese, Tamil, so that you get people involved at different levels. So you give short courses like 3 days or 2 days, something like that, and then get this thinking into the community. So then you will be able to lead it. Yeah, thank you. We are happy to help anytime to get these things going. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Chula. There's some ideas for you, Chaturanga. I know you're very much interested in education and hopefully some vocational training for youngsters as well. We've got a question from Jiwananda as well. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mimi. Thank you, Chaturanga, for a very interesting talk. I have a question. Perhaps it may be outside of your expertise, but since there are others who touched on this area peripherally, I will ask that question anyway. So going forward as a country, what should be our approach to balancing cash crops versus food crops? I am especially thinking about our tea industry. Right now, as far as I know, it's struggling, especially the tea smallholders are just barely surviving. And the prospect for the world market is also not very bright. So, and also in terms of resources, the tea is occupying a larger portion of the valuable land of the country. Going forward, what do you think? Should we continue with the expanding tea industry, or should we diversify? Thank you very much.
Well, regarding tea industry, actually, what I think, since we are getting a lot of export income out of tea, so I think even if there is a potential for us to increase the tea production, that would be a good source of income for us too as a country. But as regarding your question, let's say there are some other crops which are not cash crops. So that's why even for the previous question also, I mentioned that paddy sector is also, even if we take, I think a couple of years ago, we calculated what a farmer is getting after cultivating 1 acre of paddy. But that was very GP was very low for a farmer. So it is neither have a good income source for the farmer, no, it is even getting some export potential. So, but usually as a country, what we are reluctant to do is like transforming these paddy lands into different crops. So that, of course, we have a problem because, but what we can do, think of those type of crops, how we can transform it into some of the cash crops, which we can bring a lot of value to maybe to the country itself, or even for export potential, tap into the export potential.
Thank you, Chathuranga. I believe we've got a question from Amjad. Please go ahead, Amjad.
Thank you. Chathuranga, that was an excellent presentation. I'll just speak on just two areas that from my observation. One is the technology. Where technology is concerned, for example, let's say we have the technology for rubber tapping, right? We introduced, when I was at Hades, we introduced the motorized rubber tapping knife, because the problem with mainly the smallholders, rubber smallholders, was that they were finding it difficult to get the experienced labor to do the tapping. But even at that introductory price of which was about 50,000-60,000 rupees, people were finding it difficult to try out that technology. In other countries, of course, there is, when a new technology introduced, there is a subsidy provided by the government to encourage the adoption of that technology. But in Sri Lanka, it doesn't happen. Right? If you take Bangladesh, for example, the first speaker, there was a gentleman who spoke right at the beginning. He talked about the boothia, the harvester. It was introduced somewhere in the beginning of 2000, and it caught on. There was no subsidy as such, but it caught on. And we are more or less, almost all the harvesting is done by mechanized means. But in Bangladesh, the harvester is relatively new. So the Bangladesh government is providing, if I'm not mistaken, a 50% subsidy for the rice combine harvester, right? So that way they're encouraging the adoption of that technology, right? So if you want people to go in for that technology and mechanization or whatever it is, anything new, because at the end of the day, there is always a risk. People think, okay, my investment of so much, what is the return I will get on this technology? There's always that, the fear, something new coming in. So that is one area perhaps the government needs to look at, to what extent can they support in the adoption of the new technology through a subsidy. Secondly, is the go-to-market strategy. Even the Haley's example that was taken, let's say gherkins, most of the time when we went out, it was for a third party. We went with private labels, not our own. So what happens is that we get squeezed for margins, right? Because if you are doing, someone else is controlling the market. So you are supplying to them. So it is under their brand that you are supplying, right? So there is a lot of leeway for them to control us as suppliers in terms of how much they can push us down on our margins, right? So that is the second point in go-to-market strategy. Dilma is a special case because I think they have been in the market for more than 25, 30 years. So they have invested in their brand, and it is very well known worldwide. But if most of the other brands, if you are going out there with your own brand, that requires investment, right? So I don't think Sri Lankan companies, except for a few companies, have that amount of resources that they could spend in establishing their brand. The third point is the scalability, right? The example of the durian. Now that lady is finding it difficult to source sufficient durian for expand, right? So we are our plantation cultivation, tea, rubber, coconut. Other than that, we have the paddy. That is the staple food that is under cultivation. But beyond that, most of the other crops, if you take, there is a limitation there. So with the extent being cultivated, if you look at small extents being cultivated, there is no economic scale for that farmer. So the cost of production is high. Right. So we are in a chicken and egg situation in terms of expanding the production by a single farmer, investing in it, so to bring down the cost of production. Right. How do you do that? For that, you need to have the market. Right. So we have these situations. How do we face it? Some countries, once again, for some of the factors of production, they provide again a subsidy. Right, whether it is electricity for processing, there is a special rate that they provide for export companies in some countries. So I think these are some of the areas that, from my point of view, we need to look at. The point that Chathuranga made about data-driven funding, that's a good way of looking at it, because currently obtaining funding for even, let's say, for harvesters, where most of the harvesters, I would say, almost 100% of the harvesters are purchased on lease, right? And you need to put down a down payment of 50-60% if you want to get a lease. And at, say, 12 million a harvester, you're asking someone to put down 6 million rupees. From where do you get such funding, right? And the interest rates are also high. So these are some of the thoughts Chathuranga knows, because we were working together, so he knows about these things. So those are my comments here. Thank you.
Thank you, Amjad. Chathuranga, any response to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rajabs, because yeah, I agree with those points, because we also have been facing the same problems when we were working together, because as a country, financing support and all these things are the struggles that most of these farmers are facing. But luckily mechanization at a good rate, especially when it comes to paddy sector. But as Mr. Rajab mentioned, that other sectors like rubber, even the tea harvesting years, so we were trying a lot to introduce tea harvester to Sri Lanka, but now it is there, but it's not considerable percentage of plantation are using tea mechanization like for harvesting, whereas the other countries are using a lot of mechanization, tea harvesters, where they can also reduce the cost of production of their tea. That is why they are competitive in other markets. So whereas our cost of production is very high, we are not competitive in other markets. So there are a lot of things when it comes to these kind of things like mechanization, but like finance facilities, and also we have to look at from the perspective of the financing companies as well, because they are also doing a business. So they also need to ensure whether their investment is coming back. That is why I'm suggesting that giving a data back guarantee for them with the technology will ensure that they are also getting their payments back. So they are also ready to invest on those areas.
Thank you, Chathuranga. So we've talked about a lot of a range of issues. One thing that strikes me is how do we get more labour involvement in the sector? You mentioned during your seminar that there is a lot of movement away from the agricultural sector by young people. How do we attract them into the sector?
Yes, of course, there's a problem. Most of these, even the plantation sector and most of these agriculture sectors are complaining about the scarcity of labor, but that's there. But when we see the percentage of labor that involves in agriculture in Sri Lanka, I believe with the technology, we can even because the contribution to the GDP is very much higher than the service sector and the industries rather than the agriculture. So if we should not try to increase the labor, rather what we have to do is through the mechanization and through the technology, we should get maximum out of the labors that involved in agriculture things. Like if we can bring like machineries to replace the labor intensive jobs, what they are doing, so we can move those labor into some kind of a skilled form of operation where their income is also increasing. So there is a paradox, because one way we have to increase the labor also in the agriculture, but on the other hand, if we increase the labor component in agriculture, the contribution to the other areas like services and the industry is also getting reduced because we have only this much of people in the country. So it's a sort of debate. So we have to have a right balance between the labor, and also we have to bring in technology and also try to get a productivity increase from a number of labors we have.
Yes.
I hope I answer your question up to
Yes.
at least.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I understand from what you're saying. It is a question of balance, isn't it? And also, you mentioned shifting of perceptions. Is that in relation to the farmers themselves wanting to mechanize more, or people going into the industry, or the attitude of the government towards the industry, or general public? What do you mean by shifting of perceptions in terms of the agricultural industry?
Yes, initially, when there's a new technology, the same example, if I take this rubber tapping machine, which Mr. Rajab mentioned, so that technology also initially when we are bringing into the market, so farmers and also the tappers, so they are thinking that's a new technology and there's investment. So that is one of the key bottleneck that when we are trying to establish technology in the field of agriculture. But apart from that, so sometimes they might also think that these type of machineries might replace our jobs. So they are also feel some insecure with their jobs, and there are certain things like that. But what they are the mindset, what they're thinking is, they're not thinking that we should train ourselves on operating these machines so that we also can ensure our jobs and also we can earn more. So that is where the mindset that you said is a problem. But through the government involvement, because the government also have a lot of institutes which work on the agriculture, so there are a lot of officers in the field. So like I think more than 25,000 agriculture instructors in the ground in Sri Lanka. So through them, if we can bring those technology to the farmers, then we can somehow convince them the importance of using these technologies. And also maybe for the initially, if we can subsidize those machineries up to maybe some percentage, so the farmers are using, when they are seeing that other farmers are using it in the field, and also they are getting the benefit of those machineries, so others also slowly moving into those things. So that's what we saw in the combined harvesters, like paddy harvesting industry. The same thing will happen to the other industries as well. But the problem is the time, because we have to quickly go ahead with those things because other countries are far ahead of those technologies right now. So we have to somehow quickly get into these technologies and let our farmers to adapt those machineries in agriculture.
So it's urgent, isn't it? So there
Yes.
must be some sort of government impetus initiatives to support the agricultural sector, from what you're saying. In terms of encouraging value-added agriculture, getting more agripreneurs involved in this sector, is there anything specific that you think we can all do or the government can do?
Developing agripreneurs, it's like what you're asking is the role of government in terms of developing agripreneurs?
Yes, government and us as a society. What can we do?
Yeah, so it's basically one thing is we are lack of researchers, because I know there are a lot of researchers being done in the universities, but the problem is how many of those researchers are end up being a product in the market. So we have to fill that gap, bridge that gap between how these universities and research institutes work with the private sector, and also even with the small scale like people, small entrepreneurs, small and medium sector entrepreneurs, those who are interested to get into these introduce these products into the market. And also again how we support financially, because most of these people initially are finding difficulties in getting the capitals required for these type of things. But on the other hand, I would say to start with very small level, it is not a very big capital for them, but sometimes some people are finding it difficult to even get those funds initially. But as a government, what we can do is like combining all these private sector and government sector, universities, all these stakeholders into one platform. So all are also all the people are into one goal, so that then we can develop a lot of agripreneurs. On the other hand, as a society, also we have responsibility like developing this entrepreneurship mindset among the young people. So that's what we have to do, not only in agriculture, but the businesses, the entrepreneurs is the key in the development of the economy of the country.
Sure. And in that process, is there a contribution that the female population can make?
Yes.
You mentioned the lady who developed the Durianzila. Can we encourage more women to go into the sector in some way?
Yes. Now, the same case studies that they have brought today is from women entrepreneurs, Himalaya and the other one. So it's really important because now the women are also contributing to the economy of the country. But nowadays, not unlike those days, now there is a considerable percentage of women are also working, employing. So, but at the same time, they can start these type of small businesses even at cottage level. So they also have a big role to play in these type of things. The same example that I brought today is also started cottage level. Now they are doing really well. So these type of things we can encourage even women also to come forward and take up challenges and develop them into businesses.
So cottage industries, more financing, perhaps encouraging banks to lend more, consider it less as a risky area to fund. So thank you for all of that. I've got another question for you, Ananda.
The Himali is in the audience. Why don't you ask her to say a few words, and you will know exactly what she thinks.
Yes, please. Are you?
Chaturanga Himali. In Sinhala or English, whatever.
Himali, please contribute in Sinhalese or in English, whichever you prefer, and then we'll move on to Jivananda afterwards.
It's still muted.
Sorry, Himali, whilst you gather your thoughts, perhaps we could move on to Jivananda and then we'll come back to you, Himali.
Thank you. Quick question, Chaturanga. Those expensive agricultural machinery, are they owned by the individual farmers, or is there a rental service in the country? Thank you.
Yeah, there's no rental service in the country as of now because most of these some of them are farmers, but some of them are like individuals, those who have the worth to buy those machineries. But if we take let's say a village, there is one person who can afford to buy those machines. So what they're doing is they buy the machine and they rent it to the other farmers, like small scale farmers, like 1 acre, 2 acre. So what they're doing is renting it out. But because afford machinery in Sri Lanka, like other countries, one farm is having at least 100 acres where these farmers can afford to have a machine for their farm itself. But in Sri Lanka, the situation is different. So usually there are people, those who afford machineries, and they are doing the hiring service for others. But as government or something, we don't have hiring services as of now.
Thank you. Himali, are you on the
I
call?
think she said even yesterday also she won't be able to even speak because she is with the kid or
I see.
something. So
All right.
yeah.
No worries. Do you have any other questions from the audience? If until someone can think of some more questions, I just need to mention that we've only got a little bit of time left now. Could you think a little bit more, Chathuranga, about developing some short courses? And are there any suggestions from the audience how we can take this forward? If there are any, please do send it in to Leeds, and we will communicate that to Chathuranga.
Yeah. And yeah, that's good thing, and also I think that's possible, and also I would like if someone from the audience also to comment on this. And also I can see even Mr. Vijita is also here, who is director from Haley's Agriculture, and also they have an initiative called HATS, which is Haley's Agriculture Training School. So they are planning some of the short courses for students and for general public, farmers. There are a lot of programs going on through that as well. So if he's available, I think he also will be able to comment on this.
Yes, please, Vijita, please tell us a bit more about the courses that you run at Haley's. You're muted, Vijita. It may be a technical issue trying to unmute. Okay. Is there anything else that you think we need to think about, Chaturanga, based on the questions raised this afternoon?
Yeah, that suggestion is a good one. If we can prepare some short courses for interested people, because the problem is when it comes to entrepreneurship in Sri Lanka, there is a lack of programs that we can learn, because we are going through the methodical education systems, but nowhere we get enough education on how to manage a business and these type of things. There are business management courses or something, but particularly in entrepreneurship, there is a lack of knowledge sharing. So that's a good suggestion. We will think of that and see how we can do something to the young people in the country to develop as entrepreneurs.
And could the Vocational Training Authority assist in some way?
Exactly, yes.
And just one final question from me, really. It's with regard to encouraging foreign investment in Sri Lankan agricultural products or the sector generally. Is there anything that the Sri Lankan representations overseas can do to encourage that? The various high commissions and embassies?
Yeah, that's basically, I think, the role of those high commissions is like helping to find the markets for some of the startups in Sri Lanka. So that way, actually, so they will also get a chance to, bring their products out there in different countries. So that is a really important role, because, there are some of the companies, those who are with really good products. It can be either food product or some other products, but the problem is it is really difficult for them to go out, because sometimes it's a bit of a high investment for them to go and visit those exhibitions, represent the exhibitions, and go and talk to them. But if those high commissions can play that role to connect them with potential buyers, so that way we also will be able to help those initiatives, those entrepreneurs to develop their product into other countries.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chaturanga. Are there any other questions, final questions from the audience? Because we're almost out of time. Jula, do you have any?
No, I think we should continue this conversation, because I think it's so important. So And please send us whatever the ideas you have, whatever the help you can do in relation to this, and we'll put a group together to take it forward. And Nilmini, you're doing a great job trying to motivate this aspect. So yes, so we can have subgroups who are going on these various areas. I only want to make a little one comment because I'm quite experienced in the health sector in Sri Lanka, why various machines didn't work. So the government will sponsor a most expensive item to be brought. But 3 days when it's in practice, it will break down. And then the original company will say, we have trained your staff to train visits, where are they? And you will find that these scholarships and things being kind of hijacked by various officials who has nothing to do with it. So likewise, so be careful when you're buying very expensive material for this thing. Look at the cost effectiveness, in particular, using the machine 24 hours so that it will be maximally used before it runs out. And so you can go for the next generation stuff. So this has been the story in Sri Lanka for years and years and years, where you buy most expensive item, but very underused. And that's because there's no repair people, there's no spare parts, there's no whatever consumables, and so on and so on. So that's why. So when you invest on a machine, be cost effective and look at all these aspects before you say yes for it. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Yes, I suppose in relation to the machinery that you're investing in, there could be a whole ecosystem of service providers around it as well that can grow if we find the right products. So thank you very much, everybody. Unless Vijitha or anyone else has any comments, I think we can think about wrapping up for the afternoon. One last question from anyone? Otherwise, we'll say thank you very much. Thank you, Chathuranga Bopeththa, for your excellent seminar. Really enjoyed it, learnt lots, and I hope everybody else found it really insightful as well.
It's a great day today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me here today, and also for Dr. Chula and Nilmini for asking me to come here and do this presentation. And also it's really good audience as well, because they also contributed a lot to the discussion. So thank you for everyone.
We're privileged. Thank you to Chathuranga, and all the best, everyone. We'll see you again at another Leeds event. Thank you.